Hello, and welcome to the third episode of the Oscar3dm podcast. This time around, I sit down and talk to Mahan Lamei, the co founder and now CIO of CalcTree. He talks to me about the CalcTree platform, which aims to centralize all of the engineering knowledge across companies and individuals onto Notion like pages and calculators so that everyone has a single source of truth to work from. In addition to the platform, he also talks to me about his transition from engineering to entrepreneurship, his journey as a founder, and his theories on things like management, the chaotic nature of success, and what it takes to be successful. There's a lot to get into here, so I hope you enjoy it.
CalcTree is an online workspace for engineers to put their calculations and the tools related to the calculations in one place. So it's all about integrations and making it possible for them to reuse different parts of typical projects. I'm sure engineers in the industry can relate with like how much we create things from scratch while doing projects. So that's the main theme.
Yeah, reuse is really important because it kind of goes against this concept of tribal knowledge. If there's a bunch of people working in the office and everyone knows their own piece of the information of how to make a design, for example, or how to do a certain calculation, you have the human element of everyone has their own knowledge, and then you also have the technical element of all of the templates being spread out across spreadsheets and scripts. Um, so it sounds like this tackles both of those issues, where if a person has certain domain knowledge, they can write it into a CalcTree page, and it also solves a technical issue because of all the integrations with spreadsheets and um, code or low code solutions, which is the way I understand it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good summary. Um, that's true. And in CalcTree, we arrange those spreadsheets and scripts around this concept of pages. Um, because as you mentioned, the human element, uh, there is this language element and documenting element that can be the hub for binding all things together. So we have this page, and you can have um, spreadsheets or Python scripts attached to it. And the page is dynamically communicating with those spreadsheets or Pythons that is attached to it. It will be like it is like a parametric report, if you will, and both in terms of like an individual who is practicing, they can use CalcTree to accumulate their knowledge there and use it in reuse it in a standardized way when they turn it into like well-defined pages or well-defined components. And also, as you mentioned, when you have a team, they can collaborate and have like a standard way of using each other's work and um, having a synergy, like standing on top of previous work.
Yeah, so it's like a calculator. It also makes the report. So it's very visual from what you showed me last time. You have different dashboards and graphs and all these dynamic elements, and you can define the inputs for whatever calculation you're making. Um, this standardized way of interacting with it is really interesting because if you give it the inputs, then it'll give you your whole report and outputs and all the steps in between, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And the main differentiator comparing to, if you will, existing solutions is that the way that that document is set up, it's actually passed to the user. So you can, as the power user in the team, set up that document, how it um, interacts with the spreadsheets or the Python script. And it's not like we internally create this document which has some fields and it's rigid. It's all the power is all passed to user to in a lean and flexible way create what they want in their domain.
Yeah, that's interesting. This division between the developer, like, and the user. So the developer or the author can make a page and figure out how he wants everyone to interact with it. So you kind of put walls up, right? Which is a little
Yeah,
different than an Excel sheet where you can go in and delete the whole equation, right?
yeah, exactly. And it's about roles. So as a user, you could have both roles, like a power user or a pro user, as we call it, and a regular user who uses existing company calculations to create a new project. um, and having those um, approved pieces of working calculations that you can build your project with also streamlines the review process, because you are sure that that piece is not messed with, just the inputs are changed, and it has been reviewed already by the company based on the roles. um, so we are actually inspired by practices in software in engineering world. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have libraries, and those libraries are using other libraries, and also we're in our roadmap we have a way to suggest new versions for those standard components. Like there are new versions for libraries, and previous usages they can opt to update or at least know what has been changed. So is it like a critical change that they need to have a mitigation in the design, or it's an optimization? The previous design is kind of fine, it's just not optimized. And it also touches the world of guides and practices and codes of practices in engineering world. With the new versions, you can have those updates and all that comes with it.
Yeah, we can learn a lot from software engineering and their, version control. I My mind goes to Git, right? You have a history of the page, um, and a track of all the changes that have been made. And what I also think is interesting is I work with parametric models a lot, and these templates get passed around to designers. Um, but you make a change in the standard, the design standard, and you don't know if a design was made with version 2 of the script or version 3. So those design principles are different, and I'm guessing the engineering principles can change as well. You change an equation or the review process. So how do you think about attaching a version, like a calculator version or a page version, to the actual design? Is this something that you're thinking about?
Yeah, exactly. So we have that on our roadmap and as part of our vision to provide a version control system to that page concept.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, it's all about change sets. So new change sets come in, and relevant stakeholders will get notified about those, and they
Hmm.
can action based on the type of the change that the person who made that change and had the permission to make that change to create a new version. That person also indicates what should be done with the previous usages, like the previous version. People have used the previous version. What should they do? So that's systematically also embedded in that version control feature that we are planning to add.
Yeah. Does that look like tracking all of the projects that were made by each calculator, or does that look like maybe printing the version number at the bottom of the calculation sheet or something like that?
Yeah, we are iterating on, as you say, like MVP or wireframes, also user experience. Definitely, it can't be just a copy of what software engineers do, because there are inherent differences between
Hmm.
the two industries. So we try to learn and be there, and not to imitate what is there, but watching what is there, and that helps us spark new ideas that is relevant to us. And that is not finalized yet. But to answer your question, it's definitely based on change sets, so you can see and kind of see what parts have been updated, like a diff viewer, if you will.
Hmm.
But again, it should be in a way that works with our industry as opposed to software engineering industry.
Yeah, I mean there are differences. I mean, with software you can choose to deprecate it, even like live software, but things that you make with it in engineering and design stay out there, right? And so
Yeah,
if there's an issue with one that's 8 years ago, you have to pull all that back with all of the I guess associated calculations and that kind of thing. Which yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
um, for engineering, it's like a physical thing built there. You can't just deprecate and like use a
yeah,
new version
exactly,
that's like
exactly. We can't update
game.
buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. So it's all about, if there is an update, you should know what will happen, like what is the situation with the previous usages of the calculation, what
Hmm.
should people do. So it's like in car industry, there is they call cars for, maybe there is a issue with the airbag, or there is all about the mitigation, because the car is already built. They cannot just delete it and
Hmm. Yeah.
use a new version, right?
Exactly. Yeah, bring the cars back. And software, you can just take it, and with things, you can't do that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Um, what's your favorite use case that you've seen from your work at CalcTree, in the different industries that people are adopting it in?
Um, the kind of like cliche example is names of the files, like final one, and like people
Mm,
use like names of files for spreadsheets to
yeah,
indicate like this is the final version, and then when you share it, there is no clue like which is
yeah.
which.
Which is the final one?
Really final.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's one use case. Another use case is definitely the codes of practices. For example, different jurisdictions have, let's say, reinforced concrete codes of practices, and there comes amendments or totally new edits,
Hmm.
and um, you will have to um, uh, if you want to conform to latest edits, you have to have new versions of your templates if you have templates. Um, and I think it's also worth mentioning that in our industry, because we deal with people lives, and like it would be catastrophic if we fail
Hmm.
in a designing or building building. So we are usually on a little on the conservative side. So it's not like you use a code and 5 years later they find out, oh, the
Hmm.
building is gonna collapse, or the bridge is definitely gonna collapse. Like really, maybe like the incident you had with the cargo ship collision with the bridge tier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe in like rare cases, they have to rethink. Okay, so maybe there should be a substantial change in the code of practices. But other than that, it's more about optimizations when you think about codes of practices.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, everything gets multiplied by like 1.5 or something just to make sure nothing bad happens. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So um, that is interesting. Like you're just playing with little margins, and um, it's not like you have to go back and revise old designs unless in the extreme cases where you do because something really changed. Um, so I was when you were talking about this, like codes being updated, I my mind went to the like cities and jurisdictions and regulatory agencies, they release PDFs like design guidelines of how to step by step how to calculate something. And if they could release something like this where they give you the sheet with the inputs and the API, which sounds ridiculous because I can't imagine that they would be that forward thinking, but theoretically, you could or someone could convert the latest design standard into a sheet and distribute it to the different engineering firms, who all then trust that this is correct.
Yeah, totally. Actually, they are starting to be more forward thinking. So I can't disclose the special like names, but we are collaborating with some standard organizations,
Hmm.
and they are seeing the potential to create these components. And uh, because at the end of the day, they want to standardize practices.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a platform, there is a tool that lets them create those standard components and engineers can use them in a effective way, they are interested in using
That's
those
really good to
tools.
hear because this seems like a great application for it. Um,
Definitely.
so would they want to take on the liability of maybe something being programmed incorrectly and someone, I a lot of thought does go into making the design guidelines, but is there like an extra failure point if you have to code in them into the like a page and then maybe they get um, programmed incorrectly?
Yeah, that's one of the main things that comes to mind when standard committees want to involve in like owning maybe a calculation tool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I believe so far the practice has been they don't get involved in how the code is implemented, and usually a software provider implements that, and also the software provider has a terms of service, and
Mm-hmm.
it passes on the final like responsibility to the end user.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you as an engineer, yeah, should be responsible. And also, usually the business models is like arranged like that. So if for example, if you do a consulting engineering work, if you are the one who underwrites it, you get a lot of money. But if you are providing a software to create calculations or use create simulations for that purpose, but you don't bear the liability, you
Mm-hmm.
won't, you can't charge that much. So that makes sense because engineering is all about like having a good knowledge of the physical phenomena. At the end of the day, you know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you've been there, you have experience. There is still that element. We can't just dismiss it and say like technology is coming. So
Yeah, the liability still
engineering,
lies with the engineer and the designer, as it always has.
yeah, yeah, and the um, kind of seeing the general picture by the practicing engineer, that element is still there. So going back to your question, I think still it will be up to the like underwriter, like the engineer that is responsible for the work to verify the tool they are using,
Mm-hmm.
even that tool, even if that tool is promoted by those committees who created the standard practices. But the engineering, the practicing engineer needs to verify the tool anyway. I think that continues to be the case.
Yeah. Okay. That I mean that makes sense to me. These tools augment your workflow, but you still have to know what you're doing and how to use them because garbage in, garbage out is the old saying. So this still applies
Yeah,
even if you know if it'll get you more of the way there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
And with the emergence of AI, that kind of also comes to play. Like AI is it's still at its maybe initial stages. So as they say, it's like a 13-year-old going search Google for 1 week, but does that in 1 second, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but still, it's not like a practicing engineer. Um, some people might not like might believe that AI is more advanced at the moment in that regard, but I think um, yeah, inherently it needs uh, to be developed more. And again, it comes back as to this principle that if you are using a tool, even if it's AI, at the end of the day, you should be able to verify it like safely.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has gone through this where they prompt ChatGPT for something and it confidently tells you something wrong. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah.
yeah. So, always verify. I think it's important. Are there any intersections of this tool with AI? I feel like they're separate, but maybe not.
I believe the way AI works, it it enables a lot of like convenience
Mm-hmm.
in tools, in software tools. So we are looking at different corners in the product that we can use AI to make things smooth here.
Mm,
And again, like imagine you have like very young person, like they can go research for you like for months
mm-hmm.
and come back to you, but they can do it for like in 1 second, right? And also they can do it through all the entire your workspace, like very effective searching or
Yeah.
detecting some patterns in your flow and making suggestions. They
Mm,
don't do things, but they provide suggestions to you that has a that normally won't probably come to mind.
yeah.
So this synergy between like human and this AI that can do that massive regressions and that data processing and coming back with something that makes sense to you. That combination is the winner, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, any software and also CalcTree, I think they will start to by default add AI um, like conveniences in
Mm-hmm.
different parts of the flow.
Yeah. Some so this concept about search, every company who implements this will have like a large database of the different calculators and pages that they have. There's going to be different patterns in the way that they structure them, or in the actual engineering principles in them. So I'm imagining that you could prompt an AI and ask, okay, I want to make a calculator for this. Have we done anything similar? What calculations are similar? Um, which pages are related? Or how would you go about structuring this? And then it could answer you like an AI assistant on the side.
Yeah, the first thing that we came to think about is okay, so if you have a systematic way to use a calculation multiple times across your projects, then you have data across the domain of inputs, like possible inputs and possible outputs. So you can do things with it, like AI can tell you, okay, so you are putting this number as like beam depth here. By
Mm-hmm.
the way, in across your all your project, this is kind of out of like an outlier, like
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Or maybe there is a calculation that needs a lot of computational power to do it, like
Mm-hmm.
a finite element of with like a complex mesh and boundary conditions. And if you have done it multiple times, you have a good set of input and outputs across the domain. So you can have a regression that quickly gives you like a nice estimation, like based on what has been done so far. So this
Mm-hmm.
kind of is more about generally about regression. but also kind of touches the AI side of things. So it can be a start point to use AI. And also, as you mentioned, there are many PDF referencing um, uh, throughout the creating like project documents. So based on what has been so far on the page, AI can find and suggest like this is the reference, or maybe you want to include this reference to this clause in this code, and along those lines.
Yeah. I mean, it could also author it if it can read, interpret it, and uh, code the solution. Are you trying to stay like on the edge of or err on the side of safety so that the user has to input it, or are you open to having an AI author like a page from a PDF?
Yeah, definitely. We are doing some trials with that, like to see how GPT performs in that regard. And sometimes it's quite good, sometimes
Hmm.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And um, I think, yeah, in future it might be possible to like trust those more and more. Um, but I think that is not like the first cornerstone that you want to use in your product.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to do smaller incremental conveniences before you try to
Yeah,
make a
exactly.
fully fledged developer. Um,
Yeah.
so, how do you think about public and private databases, uh, and how an AI could potentially help you? Would it look only in your own repository, or would it go out and look at the world of information and bring you back some suggestions?
Yeah. First of all, there is like privacy standards and security standards in the industry, to the point that there are some requirements for bigger companies that they can't use cloud. They should have their private cloud or even on-premise version of your software. So that sort of puts a puts boundaries of like how a single like global AI can access everything in that industry or not.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, but again, if the mindset and habit of sharing and contributing to the community grows more and more, then there will be more data available to it in AI that can sit on top of like different a lot of different iterations of that calculations. Uh, Otherwise, it's more safe to say for bigger companies, it only looks at like what's available to it, which for bigger companies is like a large data set again. So
Yeah, larger companies will have a lot. Um, Smaller, like two, three, 10-person firms may want to lean on maybe like publicly available data where people, I don't know, have a lower subscription tier or choose to make the data available publicly. So I feel like that would be where that could be useful.
yeah, exactly. And the way we are implementing it is that we have a community side, and people can actually publish those standard elements, components to the community,
Hmm.
and it will be under their name, and other engineers can like in the software world you use libraries which are open source, or you can use it, can use them and comment on like what improvements could be made to it. So
Hmm.
it kind of promotes sharing with community and learning from community. And then AI could also, based on the terms that you use for usages of those templates, can have access to a lot of data that is kind of like a contribution from the community.
Yeah, I love this community aspect of it because everyone can bring what they know to the table and sharpen what is available. Thinking about things like Wikipedia, maybe that's a dated reference, but everyone comes in and authors their bit, and other members come in and verify it. Um, so, have you seen any of this, or have you started on this community building? Um, or are there users
Yes.
that are doing this right now?
Yes, we have started that, and we are playing with the setup so that it also brings value more and more for the contributors. For example, you and I know like there are a lot of tech savvy engineers that create very cool automations, scripts, and tools, but they are not marketing people. They are not sales
Mm-hmm.
people. They can't even monetize those or let the world know that a script is there, they can use it.
Yeah.
So if we, as part of the community, if we can have like a good collection or repository that people can put their work there and they know that the world will know about it,
Yeah.
it goes a long way for them. Um, uh, yeah, I think I forgot your main question.
I was wondering if this is happening already, if people have started
Oh
to
yeah, yeah,
to
and
do this.
yeah, so yeah, we are iterating on that. Currently, most of the templates on that are created internally by us
Mm-hmm.
because we internally also want to test CalcTree. Like, can it like provide a flexible tool to create the calculations that we want as engineers
Yeah.
create. So there are a lot of internal ones there, but we are seeing more and more contributions from the community through that. So yeah, you can. I invite audience to go to calctree.com, and then there are templates. There is a link to templates page. We call them
Mm-hmm.
templates, and yeah, check that out, and they can create a free workspace and play with it and customize those templates or use them as is.
Yeah. That sounds like a great opportunity if you have a spreadsheet or something you want to standardize. Um, that would be a good first step. I love Notion. I start to put all my notes there. That's like the center of truth for me. If I was doing this kind of calculations and repetitive work, uh, CalcTree would be the sidekick to that. Um, so I think it's great. Um, so why did you decide to do this? Was this like a frustration that you had in your career, or was it uh, co-founders that also had this issue and you all got together and wanted to fix it? What's the origin story with CalcTree?
Yeah, yeah. So I am a geotechnical engineer by trade,
Mm-hmm.
and I also studied a couple of years computer science before I become a civil engineer.
Yeah.
So I could create kind of scripts to my capacity and help my team to automate things. But usually I observe that those efforts will be lost after the project is done. So
Mm-hmm.
my original idea was to have like a place to accumulate that IP and reuse it. Um, and I think looking at this space, a company named Victor AI are doing great in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the focus on Python scripts. And then I joined a earlier stage venture capital program that lets you share your ideas together and find like-minded potential co-founders.
Mhm.
So I joined this VC program, early stage program called Antler, which now I think has our offices all over the world. But yeah, I joined the one in Australia, and I was lucky to join Honor and Tim, my co-founders. So they also had worked in the industry and with a bit of different perspective and perspectives to the same kind of pain point. So we joined together, and the original idea evolved to a central a hub with that page concept that you can integrate the familiar tools that you use as an engineer every day, but they are siloed here and there. You have to copy paste from this to that. And on CalcTree, you have the same familiar tools, but they understand each other. So you can just connect them together with your uh, end document as a parametric thing, and in a systematic way create a repository for all those automations, a way to approve them, have like teams and companies can have a set of calculations which are approved as components, and for their kind of projects they can reuse them. Data will be accumulated, they can get insights, all the benefits that comes with standardization, componentization of those stuff. Um, yeah, so that's how CalcTree vision was like little by little formed between the
Mhm.
three of us. Um, and yeah, we were able to raise a couple of rounds. We are at the pre-seed stage at the moment, and yeah, considering the current atmosphere in startups and VCs being a little bit conservative,
Mhm.
we are proud to have like a good runway, and yeah, we are progressing and
Mhm.
trying our best as any startup does.
Yeah, it's early days. That's really exciting. You're building something that all of you are passionate about, have the same pain points. It sounds like you're well on your way despite the economic conditions. Um, maybe being more conservative at the moment. I think that there's a really interesting things that happen when you pull from two different directions. So engineering and computer science, like the intersection of this, is a really hot uh, area at the moment. And I think it always kind of has been with computational design, but now with AI, there's all these products that are coming out, and I feel like these few years are going to be really interesting to see what people build from the new capabilities that we have in technology. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Um, to that point, yeah, always you see great things come out of intersections of adjacent disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very true. And also, I think we have seen this transition from point solutions to more like comprehensive solutions. I think maybe 20 years ago, or yeah, 20 years ago, you had so many little software providers,
Mm.
kind of siloed. Then these point solutions usually get acquired by the bigger ones, and people go through having like a single provider that provides everything for you, like Bentley or Autodesk or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or maybe um, Dassault system in like mechanical engineering and companies like that. Um, and then I think the next wave is like getting more into the nitty gritty of how you create these integrations. Not that a bigger company acquires like smaller ones and like
Mm-hmm.
creates like an import export, but actually in one tool really see the real integrations that things work together. That's I think the next the next progress that we see in that regard.
Yeah. Do you think that bigger companies are sitting back and seeing who has the winning idea to come in and acquire those smaller companies?
Um, I mean, I myself, I'm kind of new to this world
Hmm.
from like a business perspective, so
Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt. But usually it works like that because bigger players are slow to move. They have so much inertia to innovate. So that's usually it works. So smaller teams can be very optimistic, take a lot of risk, and they're passionate in what they're doing. And if they mature enough, then those companies feel like, okay, we can um, just acquire them. And it's not a bad thing. I think it's like a system that turns out to work in that
Mm.
way.
Do you, how do you see the future of this? Because I think there's a few ways it can play out. So as you said, like Autodesk, Bentley are incumbents, um, but with the new explosion of technology, all of these smaller companies are coming out with their solutions and their integrated environments, more than import export, but really new features and maybe new
Mhm.
products in themselves. So they could they could find they could sit alongside these bigger programs and do something really specific and play with them. They could get conglomerated again, or they could overtake the older bigger companies. And we've seen this, over the history of technology, from the early web days to today. The the biggest players come and go, and new ones come in. So how do you see this going? Just for fun, theorizing, because I know um,
Yeah,
you're not or haven't been in the business side of this world for very long, and I haven't seen a whole lot. So I'm just having
uh,
fun thinking about what could
yeah,
happen.
yeah. Maybe I can just compare to what have seen in software engineering world tools. Like you have this incumbent called Jira,
Hmm.
Atlassian, which happens to be Australian company, like one of the first unicorns in Australia.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, now they are seen like they are kind of the incumbent in, let's say, for example, in ticket management um, uh, programs that software engineers use. And we actually started with them, and we like switched to another product.
Hmm.
I was against it initially, but we have this very experienced head of engineering that told us, look, I guarantee we should make this move. And we moved to a totally new product called Linear for our ticket management. And they are doing so good that it doesn't make sense for them to sell it to like
Hmm.
Atlassian and even the branding and the way the product works, it's not aligned with like, at least as of now, just getting sucked up by like a bigger company and
Hmm.
become a stale. Like it's so active. You see actively new features coming, and it makes so much sense to the software engineer who is using it that they say, "Oh, this is a relief," when you compare it to the old one,
Hmm.
to Jira. So will we see like a similar thing in our industry? I'm not sure. Generally, because of the inherent complexities that you have in our workflows compared to like a ticket management system,
Hmm.
things happen slower,
Yeah.
and it's easier for incumbents to manage new happenings. And yeah, so I'm not sure the similar thing will happen. um, Maybe it's worth mentioning, like for example, you see a speckle
Hmm.
um, as like a newcomer who like they keep going and like creating more exciting features in this interoperability um, domain. Um, yeah, that kind of comes to my mind, but it's like I'm not sure they will like put someone out of business in
Yeah,
this
they
industry.
they're playing at like the intersections of all the programs, and
Intersection, yeah, yeah,
there's so many programs and so many workflows that are going to come out. I feel like they're always going to have a place to connect A to B with some pipeline. Um, I don't even think they're even close to done with what they want to do. So, and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The vision is huge.
what do you think it takes to stand out as a new product? You're building one. CalcTree, one of these smaller up and coming products. Who you have a big use case that's kind of unfulfilled in the market right now, and I think there's a real need for it. So, what do you think it takes to build a successful product? Like, what are your theories at the moment?
Yeah, good question. There is like a, let's say, founding or business side to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that works is it's all about the pain point, how bad it is, and
Mm-hmm.
the number of people who are experiencing that pain point.
Mm.
That's generally base of your pitch deck when you want to attract funds. So
Okay.
we have been operating on that and have been successful based on what we've raised so far.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe this is a, a very valid pain point, and we did some numbers of number of like practicing engineers or technical people who need this. So that's why the numbers work, the mathematics works. And in terms of execution, yeah, there are so many nitty gritty and lessons you learn as you
Mm-hmm.
go, especially when you're the first time founder. Every day you learn something new. But maybe the biggest things um, is that um, uh, it, there is this chaotic element to what will be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and this unpredictability of what will be the next step stone for you to to be in a successful position and to find something that works for the market.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so considering that all back comes to how many different iterations you can test with the market.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about it, uh, instead of having like a very big um, feature in mind and putting a lot of time to create that, having a smaller iterations to constantly close the loop with market feedback is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and even if you want to learn lessons from previous startups, sometimes people say, for example, Google uh, offers these options to their employees to work. I don't know, three days per week, 2 days they can do whatever they want, or one day they can work on a personal project.
Mm-hmm.
Google can do that, and sometimes that creates this impression. Okay, as a startup, we should do that, so we become successful.
Yeah.
But Google is now Google with like all the ad money that is pumped to this ocean of like money, and then they can do that. But you should look at Google when they were at your stage,
Exactly.
what they were doing at that time, and still it's not that what worked for a successful company will exactly work for you, and you shouldn't mimic that. You should look at it to learn, um, to spark in your mind different ways to show up. So it's all about like you should think about it like in a statistical fashion. Like
Mm-hmm.
you should be able to show up and turn more and more stones and look at under more and more stones and mimicking another person or another company turning some special stone and someone was under it's not that you should do exactly the same thing. You should look at their experience so that it sparks in your mind, oh, I can have this and this and this different places to show up and increase the possibility to find next like cool thing, next discovery that enlightens yourself and also works for the market.
Yeah, this theme of showing up is really interesting because I don't know, if you're mining for gold, most of the time you're not going to hit gold, but you have to go every day and try something new and do something different until you have some good feedback. Um, and thinking about this in statistics, you can have a good process and a bad outcome, or a bad process and a good outcome, right? So you have to keep trying new things and test your assumptions and test new ideas until you figure out what is going to work for the company at your stage. Because, like you said, Google is Google. They have a different situation, different resources. If you're making a startup, you can't work 3-day weeks with 5-hour days. Is the way I'm interpreting that.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So throughout your career, you've been an engineer and you have a computer science background, but now you're getting to run a business and be a founder. So how are you enjoying that process? Or do you like wearing this hat as a founder so far?
Yeah, definitely. I'm enjoying it. It will be much peaceful if I could just um, get back to coding and you know.
Yeah.
But being a founder, it's like, yeah, putting, especially at the early stages, putting a lot of hats on, and it's kind of paradoxical because you sh- you should have your team doing tasks. Like you should be able to delegate tasks also to your team. So it's kind of paradoxical because you need to be there for many different aspects of the business, but you shouldn't step on toes of your team and be a blocker actually,
Mm,
because you think, okay, I'm the founder, I know the vision, what we need to do, so just let me do this bit and that bit, do it this way. Again, if you think about the chaotic element of how things work,
hmm
it's naive to insist on doing things in a special, a specific way. But my experience, if I want to summarize it, is as a founder, if a task is being done for the first time in the business, it's a good practice to do it as a founder because you
hmm
know the nuances of that at least once, and then you can make good decisions in hiring, in coaching your team, in what to expect as an outcome. But after you do it like a couple of times, then really it's time to delegate it and be flexible uh, with contributions of your team, and even um, be optimistic to even find again good opportunities to iterate based on your team's contributions. Maybe eventually you should be working with people who are better than you, so they definitely come with uh, good ideas that you should support.
Yeah, I mean, you want to play to the strengths of your team, and um, if you hire people who are better than you in certain domains, I feel like we can only do so much with our time. You can only be an expert in a few things. So if you get the perfect programmer in the language and context that you need them, then that's someone you want on your team. Even if they do better than you, and especially if they do better than you, um, which is which is what I'm hearing from that. But the delegation is. Um, the delegation is important, but also having understanding of what goes into every role so that you can judge it correctly. Um, from what I heard you say. So, are you telling me that you know all of the technical positions within the product, and do you aspire to know all the technical nuances of the final product and of the final team, at least at a bird's eye level?
Yeah, bird's eye level is a good term for that. And as the product got more mature, the bird got like the
The bird
higher
goes higher. Yeah, the bird flies higher.
elevation
Yeah,
because it's a complex product.
yeah.
Even yeah, I think now we are at a stage that no one um, team member could understand every detail of everything,
Hmm.
uh, uh, except for some of our leads that maybe like they know almost everything, but the details maybe if they are focused on back end, they might not know the like nitty gritty of front end stuff or vice versa.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my point is it becomes impossible and unnecessary to know all the details.
Hmm.
And also, it's worth mentioning that my title is CTO in CalcTree,
Hmm.
um, because when we formed the company, I happened to be the most technical person.
Hmm.
Maybe not very technical, like in general, but the most technical person. And that title has been there, uh, and I have been. I had different hats since then, so it's not all has been about the coding side of things. Um, so yeah, I have that bird eye, and also I act like a bridge between the domain with
Hmm.
the domain knowledge and the product side, and also the feedback that we get from the um, users, which complements that technical bird's eye to make next decisions.
Okay. So, how would you summarize your job at CalcTree as a CTO? You mentioned that you're a bridge between domains, but what does that look like day to day, and how far into the technicalities are you these days?
Yeah, we had like different phases. So at the early days, I was very much close to the details of technicalities of the coding side.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got more funding. We could hire very experienced people that can run the team. So at the current phase, I'm not that much close to the technicalities, and I couldn't because it's we are
It's so big.
upgrade. Yeah, it's so big, and we are constantly revamping and using state of the art backend to support this complex tool. Um, so currently, I lean more into the translation of product needs and experiences to a technical um, requirement or technical language for the team,
Mm-hmm.
which needs the knowledge from the both worlds. That's yeah, the most of the contributions that I'm making at this point. And um, as a founder in early stages, these phases keep changing. So
Yeah.
maybe a little bit later, I will focus on other stuff. But you try to um, do the thing that helps at the moment. Uh, yeah. So it's
Um,
not like we are attached to the titles. We try to like be helpful.
yeah, to do what the team needs at the moment that they need it, right? Um,
Exactly.
do you feel your role within the company changing as you move into these new phases drastically, or because context changes even between like a startup and Google, but all the incremental steps in between, I'm sure, feel different. So, um, have you had to remain adaptable through this process, or have you been able to do what you envisioned you wanted to do from the beginning?
Um, envisioned of what you wanted to do from the beginning. Um, Usually, you don't have the slightest idea of things that you will go through, especially when you are the first time founder.
Yeah.
So it's like the things that I'm currently doing or the phases that we have went through, I envisioned them initially.
Yeah.
So it's bottom line is okay. This is our project, our baby is CalcTree. We want it to be successful. So that's like your principle to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I didn't envision like the phases, but as to your point, yes, adaptability to um, change and being adaptable to provide your baby, the company,
Yeah.
uh, in different phases with it, like what it takes. You should be ready to do that. Yeah, you shouldn't. Let's say you shouldn't stick to things that doesn't um, relate to character, like your company. Like it should be all about the business. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have an overall mission to make sure the baby is well fed and growing. Um, how so do you find yourself stepping outside of the role you thought you would have in order to do that? Like, are you more involved in business than you felt like you might be, or what unexpected turns have come out of this whole journey for you?
Um, Unexpected terms. Let's say lessons learned and man, yeah. I mean, the startup journey is like also a like personal development journey. So you learn about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and you learn about how you can handle things that happen to you during your life, not even not just in the business. Um, and yeah, I think you kind of mature in your thinking, like what matters, what is priority, how you can help the entire team
Mm,
um, work better, as of sticking to what at the moment makes sense to you. Like give it a grain of salt at what you personally think
mm,
versus what team can do together. Um, yeah, yeah. You learn a lot about what you are good at, what you are not good at, how
mm-hmm.
to contribute in things that you are good at, and
Yeah, where
let
you fit in like this whole
yeah,
organization and how you can support the whole team. Uh,
yeah. And frankly, before before being uh, in a state that is as urgent as a startup, you might not have the opportunity to learn like those, like what are you good at really.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that really being in that urgency, that like everyday challenge situation in a startup helps you really understand those about yourself and also about your team, which is what is nice about the startup journey.
Mm. So it sounds like you've taken on. a bit more of a a bit more of a managerial role. Maybe that's not the correct term, but it's more like people and how to support people and how to connect people and the knowledge that everyone has within the organization. Um, and I'm sure this is different from your software development background, which you called earlier more peaceful. So now you have the chaos of people and business versus the peace of you and the program you're creating. Um, so are you finding a balance with those two things these days? Um, do you get time to burrow down into a project, or is all of your time spent managing the people and knowledge in the organization?
Um, uh, let's say anything that you do in the startup, you are as a founder prone to this pitfall, let's say, of sucking all your time to everyday challenges, and
Mm-hmm.
you realize, oh, I've not been skilling up for a while. I
Mm-hmm.
have not been even reading for a while, or like it's like your role in the startup takes as much time as you give it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's again like other things in a startup, paradoxical. So it's, yeah, it's about balance. And what I found helpful is have routines.
Mm-hmm.
um, so I have daily routines, um, which is very simple. Like it has 4 items or 5 items. Like first is my health, um, like other things on that, and one of them, which is the biggest, maybe time-consuming one, is my role in the startup,
Mm-hmm.
in my immediate role in the startup. But there
Immediate,
are
yeah.
also other things like that, like scaling up, and that doesn't like monetize immediately, but skilling up will help me later on with all the things that I do in my role. Um, so what has worked for me is having that very simple routine, like daily routine, and also adding a weekly goal to each item. So,
Okay.
like, yeah, I want to learn this item, or personally code to solve this ticket,
Mm-hmm.
to learn this part of the code base during this week. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah, so you have a longer time challenge, so like the weekly one, so that you keep track of like the overall important things, and you have a daily routine where you check all of the boxes that are important to you: health, immediate needs, upskilling. Um, I think that's really important. There's a concept that I like, which is urgent and important. So you can have any combination of these things. You can have urgent, not
Mhm.
important, urgent and important, not urgent, not important, and
Yeah.
then important but not urgent. So having the weekly time goal is, in my opinion, a way to take care of those things that are important but not urgent, which, if you tick off enough of those, then you're going to make overall progress in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we are all humans, so we need that, let's say, dopamine when you tick
Mhm.
like your
Yeah.
daily like routine. And reality is, you create your routines create you. Like there is like a quote like this. Maybe that's not the exact wording, but
It
yeah, the
makes sense to me.
routines
Yeah.
really work. Routines really work because you're consistent. You don't miss an aspect in your life because of that routine.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you add a little bit of a goal also to it, so that you know that okay, it has like a minimum pace, or like a meaningful pace.
Mhm.
It adds like another balancing element to it. And these like for example, one item that I have is communication, basically in English, because it's not my first language, right?
Hmm.
So again, it's not like an immediate need, but it contributes like in different aspects. um, yeah, as a founder, it's easy to let's think that, okay, put all those stuff aside, stick to what's today, and
Hmm.
your day is gone for a month or more, and then you realize, oh, everything is like behind in terms of things that I need for my health, for my personal like life. You shouldn't forget about those.
Yeah. A little personal disclosure. I feel like the urgent things have kind of swallowed up the other important things. Whereas I used to have balance. As in used to, I mean last week I was on my exercise routine and doing things for all the buckets. But then these emergencies come up and they take all of your time.
Mhm.
How do you keep those at bay? Um, or is it just about acceptance that these things are going to happen and you get back to it when you can?
Yeah, sometimes they just gonna happen. Like sometimes you have to deliver something in your work, like in this week. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I miss my routines even.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, what I do is I try to have a um, no disturb like chunk of time at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, and between them is like you are sleeping, like so
Mm-hmm.
basically they are kind of one chunk of at the end of the day. You are not gonna get disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
You do some maybe a skill up or other stuff, and you sleep. In the morning you close the loop on that before
Mm-hmm.
going to check all your emails, Slack messages, things are happening.
Yeah.
You lose that state of, you can't get to the state of flow, as they say, after you open your inbox.
Yeah.
That's gone. Yeah, so if my experience is those routines that are not related to work, do them outside of that work um, chunk of time, and basically don't open your
Don't
inbox if you
open
want
anything
to.
before. Yeah.
And it's like before you close like your routines, especially if you need a state of flow um, to operate well on those routines, and then you can happily open your messages and start the day. Um, and even sometimes even for your work items, when you have to create a design, think about like a problem, it's good to, before like getting to that bombardment of information, uh, get to the ones that need your focus first, and then get to the daily communications.
That
If it aligns with your, if you are like an on-call software engineer, so you should be on call if something happens. You can't just don't look at your Slack messages. But yeah, if you can, that works well.
yeah. Being able to separate some time that's for yourself and uninterruptible in the morning and at night. I really like that because sleep is non-negotiable. At least for me. Maybe some people are don't need it, right? But
Yeah,
those are
same.
8 hours that I've already, um, made non-negotiable. So you could make a few more hours in the day non-negotiable, and then start work when
Mhm.
when your schedule starts and when your schedule ends, and that's the time you have to play with. I do like that idea. Is it so? Is that what you've been practicing? What I guess a better question is, what does your routine look like? Because we've talked about it now for a while.
Yeah, it's like okay, I wake up around 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, and I have two kids. I help them pack up and go to school, and then for 1 to 2 hours, I if it's possible, I don't get to like getting to the messages and requests from the team, and do some either routine or work that needs focus, real focus,
Hmm.
and then I start my day. So there are many like um, questions or need for data and decisions that is coming and going and information coming. So when the day begins, all this information is there. Negotiations like collaborations with my co-founders, looking at different aspects and making the next decisions, which is at the table at the day. And then around 4:30, I my kids are back, and I have my family time with my wife.
Hmm.
Um, Dinner, some probably TV until let's say 8:30, and then I have another chunk of like focus time before I go to sleep around, let's say 11, before 11 usually.
Yeah. Leaving time for flow, I think, is really important because you think you're sharpest then and you can solve hard problems. After
Yeah.
some time has passed, you get the brain fog, or maybe you're not as useful at these like critical thinking problems, but you can still be useful in a managerial or like collaborative aspect where you're having conversations and doing like lower cognitive tasks. Um, I I do something similar where in the morning I have a chunk, and then at night I have a chunk, and then in between you can do the miscellaneous stuff. Um, so it's nice to hear that you're following that as well. I think my friends think I'm a little crazy for working at this hour sometimes, but it's when the good ideas come.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's different for different people.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's nice to see you get you got to the same like arrangement,
Hmm.
which is kind of a validation for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, um, yeah. I wanted to mention something, but I forgot. Um, yeah, if it's important, it will come back.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Um, we were talking about upskilling also. So, what kind of areas are you focused right now on upskilling for your personal development?
Um, uh, we are using more and more, let's say, state-of-the-art solutions in our architecture in the code base.
Hmm.
So I try to learn more about those.
Mm.
I like LinkedIn Learning,
Hmm.
and when I can't understand a piece of our code base, I find some course that talks about that piece,
Mm.
go through it until I understand. So it's not about just watching the course, but it's like um, uh, seeing the meaning of it in action,
Hmm.
um, which helps with learning. Um, that will help with that kind of uh, connecting the domains, and because you know the tech better, and also you know the domain, so you
Hmm.
can help with that translations to occur. Yeah, so basically at the moment is mostly about different tools that we are using. For example, um, a tool called Mesh, which relates to GraphQL
Mm.
um, in the database at the moment, in our architecture at the moment. So yeah, many different libraries and tools um, in the code base.
Okay. Um, sometimes I switch between trying to understand something specific and just trying to get more of the lay of the land, I guess. So if I'm like really running into a lot of problems, sometimes I try to watch a few videos on the general concept or general course,
Mhm.
so that you get more of the map, and then you have more of an understanding of where to really drill in. Um,
Mhm.
it kind of sounds like you like to do the same thing, where you want to get a cohesive view of a subject in programming, architecture, GraphQL, whatever that is.
Yeah,
Would you
yeah,
agree? Yeah.
exactly. And to be fair, I use a lot ChatGPT or Gemini
Same.
when exploring those stuff.
Yeah.
It has made a huge difference, really, in
Yeah.
exploring a code base or things like that. Yeah, it's fair to mention that it had made a huge difference for me. So yeah, it's a combination of articles, videos, and ChatGPT or Gemini. My personal anecdote is that ChatGPT is better
Mm.
for those stuff compared to Gemini at the moment, but yeah, they keep competing.
I haven't ventured beyond Chat GPT at the moment. I've been meaning to try Claude and Gemini and all these other ones. But which one was is considered to be the best programmer right now? Is it Claude or do you
Uh,
know?
I, I'm not sure, but we are using Copilot
Mm-hmm.
from GitHub.
Yeah,
Um,
me too, because it,
yeah,
it just completes the lines quickly.
yeah, it
The
gives you
velocity is fast.
suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and again, you see the format here. It gives you the suggestion, but you are the one at the end of the day
Mm-hmm.
who decides to use it or not. So it's not like it composes something and you deploy it. It's like it gives you suggestions in chunks that you can approve or not.
Okay. Um, so we're coming on time here. We're at about an hour and a half. Um,
Okay.
so
It passed quickly. Yeah,
time passes quickly. The conversation was good. I could keep doing this. Maybe we could do a second one at some point. Um,
sure.
but before we go, is there anything else you wanted to discuss? Any advice, maybe for founders who want to create their own product, um, and maybe a learning that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, that was actually the thing that I forget to mention. Like, if you are doing a task, you should be mindful. Like, look at yourself. Like, are you already too tired? You're just trying to push. If you could just go to sleep and wake up earlier and be fresh, or have like a short break. Um, I know that they say maximum for maximum 30 minutes your mind is learning. After that there is a drop
Mm,
until you have at least a short break. So if you have like 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours trying to solve something, you're probably only doing 30 minutes.
wow.
But if you have 30 minutes, then 10 minutes break, another 30 minutes, another hour. Like, be mindful of how your mind is operating. um yeah, generally like being mindful helps a lot. And coming back to what comes to my mind as to share with founders is pay attention to the that chaotic element of success.
Hmm.
And it's kind of naive to stick to something that you think it's gonna work, and it's a gold bucket there, my idea, we just need to have to pick it up, go there and pick it up. No,
Hmm.
nobody knows like how things work out at the end of the day. So it's just about being open to exploring more iterations and showing up in um, more places that possibly you can find beautiful things and also success in your business.
Yeah, I love that theme of showing up and trying different things, because no one knows the answers, because this world
Yeah,
is so chaotic and no one knows what's going to work. Not you or really anybody else. So just testing your theories, showing up, trying, being consistent. I think that's a good message, and being mindful about your limits, not trying to brute force things, um, taking care of yourself, and working smarter, not harder at times. Take breaks.
Ex- Exactly.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much for your time. Um, and yeah, we'll leave it off here.
Yeah, no worries. Also, thank you for your time and for the opportunity.